In 2026, the world may witness something so dark and devastating that it would make any previous war seem small. Alois Irlmaier, the mysterious German seer who predicted events with frightening accuracy, revealed details of a prophecy for that year that send chills even through the most skeptical. An unexpected conflict, mass destruction, and signs in the sky that precede total chaos.
Hey,
What we
Di.
saw for 2026 is not just frightening.
Do you remember I told you my YouTube played up? Apparently, I had to reboot it all, and that's what I done. So that's what went wrong.
It's deeply disturbing. And the worst part, everything already seems to be in motion. Alois Irlmaier was not a scientist, politician, or religious leader. He was a humble Bavarian man, a well-digger by trade, who lived in Germany during the early and mid-1900s.
Where is he?
He gained unexpected attention for a gift that few could understand.
There he is. There, look.
The ability to see things before
There he
they
is.
happened.
His little
Despite his
face.
simple background, Irlmaier described visions with chilling clarity, many of which came true, shocking even the most skeptical minds of his time.
He's jumped in the moo spot on the bed. That's crooked.
If you
So hang
believe in
on.
God and Jesus Christ, don't forget to like and subscribe to Mysterious Paths. God bless you. During and after World War II, people traveled long distances to hear what this quiet man had to say. He didn't seek fame or fortune. In fact, he often refused money, insisting that his gift came from God and should not be used for profit. What drew people to him was not only the accuracy of his visions, but the sincerity and peace in his voice when he spoke about the future, even when describing chaos and destruction.
You're right.
One
Tell me
reason
back
his
in.
predictions still impact
Tell
the
me
world
back in.
today
You're right.
is the level of detail he provided.
Tell me back in,
He spoke
cleaner.
of wars, natural disasters, and a complete shift in how people would live. While some believed
Tell
him
me
as a
back
visionary,
in, cleaner.
others feared
No
what he
worries.
saw.
I
His
got
most
him.
disturbing prediction,
I got
one that he
him.
said would happen after the third assassination of a high-ranking person, warned of a massive and sudden war that would spread through Europe. Unlike many so-called prophets, Irlmaier never claimed to know the exact timing of his visions, but he gave enough clues that many now believe some of his words may apply to current world tensions. With
Why is
technology,
it crooked
social
like that?
unrest, and the return of global conflicts, his old prophecies are gaining new life. People are looking at his words again, not as myths, but as possible warnings for our near future. What made Alois Irlmaier stand out in the eyes of so many wasn't just that he claimed to see the future. It was how frighteningly accurate many of his visions were during one of the darkest periods in human history, World War II, and the years
Hey, Mars, good to see you, mate. We got a new moo.
that followed. While the world was lost in chaos and millions feared for their lives, Irlmaier quietly described events that had not yet occurred, but would soon unfold in exact detail. During the war, Irlmaier was often visited by desperate families, especially mothers who wanted to know if their sons were still alive on the battlefield. With nothing but a piece of
Mars, I'll show you Busby. Busby. Where are you? Buzz. Oh, he's right there, look. There he is. He's a little Busby. Hey, mate. Look how cute his face is. He's such a sweetheart.
paper and his calm presence.
Why
He
is
would
it
describe
crooked
where the
like
soldier
that?
was, whether he was wounded or safe, and even the circumstances he would return home or not. Many of these families would later confirm that what he said was true, down to the smallest details. One of his most noted predictions involved the bombing of cities. He described the destruction of Munich and other German towns before the planes had even taken off. In some cases, He warned residents to leave certain areas days
Happy
before
New
they
Year
were
back,
attacked,
boss.
saving lives. He also foresaw the arrival of American forces and even the defeat of Germany long before it was evident to the public. After the war, as Germany tried to rebuild itself, Irlmaier predicted political changes and social unrest.
And he's got the temperament that matches cuteness. He's such a sweetheart.
That also came to pass. He
You
spoke
think you
of the
own the
division
house
of
now,
Germany,
don't you, mate?
the rise of
You
materialism,
do.
and a growing moral crisis. These were not random guesses. They were specific, timely, and often uncomfortable truths that no ordinary man could have known in advance. Because of this, his name began to spread, not as a myth, but as a man whose visions could not be ignored. To this day, no one can fully explain how Alois Irlmaier saw the things he did. He had no formal education in science or politics, yet he described future events with an accuracy that made even experts uneasy. This led many to ask, was he suffering from hallucinations, or was he truly receiving revelations from a higher power? Irlmaier himself never claimed the visions came from his own mind. He was a devout Christian and spoke openly about his belief that his gift was from God. According to him, he didn't ask for this ability.
And that's why he didn't want money. Good on him.
It simply came to him after a near-death experience during World War I. From that moment on, he began seeing images, like moving pictures in the air, showing him events happening far away or yet to happen. These visions were clear, often detailed, and always accompanied by a deep sense of certainty. Skeptics, of course, tried to dismiss his gift as imagination, stress, or mental illness.
Yeah,
But even
happy New Year,
psychologists who met
Di.
him were surprised. He showed no signs of delusion or confusion.
I'd be glad to see the back of 2025. The only good thing come out of it was a dog. But we had to lose a dog to get a dog.
On the contrary,
Been a horrible year for me.
he was calm, logical, and consistent in everything he said. There was no drama in his words, only clarity, and that made his predictions even more chilling. What made his case different from others was how reluctant he was to talk about it. He didn't seek attention or financial gain. He helped people quietly, and he avoided the spotlight. This humility made many believe that something truly spiritual was at work. For those who believe in prophecy, Irlmaier stands as a modern example of how God can still speak through simple, honest people. Whether
What are
seen
you
as a
doing? You're on my
prophet, a
tablet,
seer,
doggy.
or a man touched by
Silly boy.
grace,
Yeah,
the mystery behind
silly
his
boy.
gift remains, and it continues to challenge those who try to explain it away with reason alone. Alois Irlmaier spoke often about what he called a great purification, a period of suffering that would come upon the world in 3 distinct waves. These weren't just symbolic messages. He described each wave with frightening detail, as if he were watching them unfold before his very eyes. For many, this cycle represents not a...
You know George Bush Sr.? Well, there's one called Preston Bush. He helped fund Hitler, and at the end of the war, they brought in laws so he couldn't specifically be charged because he was doing a double run, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, Preston Bush was behind Hitler's finances, or a big part of it anyway.
Only physical destruction, but also a deep spiritual warning for humanity. The first wave, according to Irlmaier, begins with confusion and division. He saw people turning against each other, nations in constant tension, and a growing feeling of mistrust spreading across the world. Governments would become weaker, and the population would begin to lose faith in their leaders. This stage, he said, would feel like the world is tearing at the seams, even though the actual destruction hasn't yet begun. The second wave would come suddenly, a major conflict, fast and brutal. He described armies moving swiftly across Europe, cities falling within days, and deadly weapons never seen before being unleashed. Unlike previous wars, this one would begin without warning. The peace that people believed was secure would shatter in an instant, and chaos would cover the land. He warned that few would understand what was happening until it was too late. The third and final wave would not be a war of bullets, but of the spirit. Disease, hunger, and despair would follow the battles, but also something deeper, a loss of meaning. People would question everything. But in this final stage, Irlmaier said, there would also be a great awakening. Those who hold on to faith would survive not just physically, but spiritually. These 3 waves, he claimed, would cleanse the world, not to destroy it completely, but to prepare it for something new, a world purified through suffering. Among all of Alois Irlmaier's prophecies, none caused more fear and uncertainty than his vision of the 3 days of darkness. For many who heard it, this prediction was the most terrifying of all, not only because of what would happen during those days, but because of the deep spiritual meaning behind them. Irlmaier described a moment when the sky would suddenly darken across the world, not from clouds or nightfall, but from a strange, unnatural force. He claimed that this darkness would be so thick that no light could pass through, not even from candles or electricity. During this time, people would be advised to stay inside, lock their doors, cover their windows, and not look outside, no matter what they heard. He warned that strange noises, cries, and even voices calling out would try to tempt people to open their homes.
There's a lot of that going around this 3 days of darkness. A lot of people believe in that. I'm not sure if I do, but if it happens, what a creepy 3 days.
But doing so would be fatal. This period, he said, would not be a natural event, but part of a divine judgment. It would separate the faithful from the unfaithful, the humble from the proud, and those who trust in God from those who mocked him. Only those who prayed and remained calm would be protected. It was, in his words, a moment of testing, a silence before the rebirth of the world. The image he painted was not just frightening, but filled with symbolic meaning. The darkness represented the final confrontation between good and evil. Those 3 days would bring the end of the old world and the beginning of something new, but only for those who endured with faith and hope in their hearts. For many believers, this prophecy is not just a prediction of terror, but a reminder to stay spiritually prepared for whatever may come. Alois Irlmaier never spoke of destruction without first warning about the signs that would come before it. To him, nothing would happen without warning, but only those who paid attention would
Diane, what did he say? I'll be with you after my shower?
See it. One of the most powerful parts of his prophecy was the list of events that would happen just before the world began to fall into chaos.
So you give credence to this 3 days of darkness, do you, Fast? I thought it was Catholic doctrine. That's why I never believed it.
He called them the beginning signs, and they were meant to prepare, not to scare.
Make memories to last a lifetime. Boating is your chance to connect, get outdoors, and enjoy amazing experiences. Whether you're paddling, sailing, fishing, or cruising, there's something for everyone. See you out there.
Scratch, come on. Come on, Scratch. No, leave the dog alone, not the cat alone. You're not teasing him. Come on, Scratch. Puss. Come on. Just as he comes, you go to tackle him.
He described the world reaching a point of great tension. Economies would begin to collapse, not instantly, but piece by piece. Banks would close suddenly, money would lose its value, and people would lose trust in their leaders. There would be confusion in the streets, anger in the air, and a growing feeling that something was deeply wrong. even if no one could explain exactly what. Irlmaier said the crisis would not begin with war, but with a
I have been known to do that, haven't I, Di? Talk to the TV so it can hear me.
breakdown of order.
Oh, it also told me the end of the world's next Friday. So cash all your houses and give the money to me and I'll take it to... I'm going there with that stupid joke.
All violent protests, empty store shelves, and a sudden silence in communication, as if the world were holding its breath. During this time, he warned that people would feel abandoned and desperate. Fear would take over, and the media would be silent or full of lies. It would be a time when truth becomes hard to find, and trust is even harder. One of the most chilling details he gave was this: everything would appear calm on the outside until the very last moment. Then, without warning, everything would erupt. A small spark, an assassination, a political betrayal, or a sudden military move would light the fire that could not be stopped. To Irlmaier, this first stage was a final wake-up call. Those who ignored the signs would be caught in the storm, but those who kept their eyes open and their hearts strong in faith would find the strength to endure what was to come. One of Alois Irlmaier's most disturbing predictions was his vision of a sudden, violent war that would erupt in the very center of Europe. He did not describe a long build-up or years of preparation. Instead, he saw a blitzkrieg, a lightning war, that would begin without warning and spread with terrifying speed. According to him, this would be the moment when everything changes, the true start of the global collapse. Irlmaier said the war would begin after a high-ranking political figure is assassinated. This event would not just shake one country. It would send shockwaves through the entire continent. Within hours, military forces would move. Tanks would cross borders. Planes would fill the sky. Cities would fall in days, not weeks. What seemed impossible would suddenly become reality, and most people would be unprepared. He saw 3 large armies moving across Europe from the east with terrifying precision. Germany, Austria, and parts of France would be caught off guard. Communication would fail, roads would be blocked, and people would flee their homes in confusion. The world would watch, but few would understand how everything changed so fast. Irlmaier described how even peaceful countries would be forced into the conflict. There would be no time for negotiations. This would not be a war for land or power, but a violent chain reaction sparked by fear, pride, and hidden agendas. He spoke of cities in ruins, bridges collapsing, and entire regions going dark.
Wow.
The most frightening part of this vision wasn't just the destruction. It was how ordinary people would be swept into it without warning. Families torn apart. Lives changed forever in one night. For Irlmaier, this lightning war was not just a military event. It was the signal that humanity had crossed a line, and what would follow next would test the very soul of the world. In one of Alois Irlmaier's most alarming visions, he saw Russia playing a central role in the sudden war that would engulf Europe. He didn't describe a slow rise in tensions or formal declarations. What he saw was quick, shocking, and devastating. A military advance so swift that maps would be redrawn overnight, and entire regions would lose their identity before the world could even react. According to Irlmaier, the conflict would begin in the Balkans, a region already marked by instability. He claimed that shortly after a political assassination, Russian forces would push westward with brutal speed. Their strategy would be bold.
Thus, they've already set up the 10 zones the kings will rule from. They've already set that up.
And cold.
I think Trump's one of the kings. I don't think he's the Antichrist, but I think he's one of the 10 kings.
Control before anyone has the chance to resist. In his words, the Russians march with the speed of lightning. He saw troops flooding into Germany through Hungary and Austria, bypassing traditional defenses and overwhelming cities in mere hours. One of the most terrifying parts of his prophecy was how Europe, despite all its modern technology, would be unprepared. He said NATO would respond slowly, unsure if the threat was real or exaggerated. By the time they moved, it would already be too late for many major cities. Paris, he claimed, would fall into chaos.
That's
Rome
happening.
would be deeply shaken. The German people, he warned, would be caught between fleeing or hiding. Irlmaier described not just military.
Where are the Germans going to go? They're surrounded by countries that are conquered as well. Where are they going to go?
Action, but also a collapse in infrastructure. Bridges, roads, and communication systems would be destroyed or shut down. Refugees would fill the countryside. Entire towns would vanish in the fog of war, their names and borders erased. What made this vision so powerful is how unexpected it felt. The Russia he described wasn't acting out of weakness, but with boldness, calculation, and unstoppable force. For many, this part of his prophecy feels more possible today than ever before.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Among the many visions Alois Irlmaier shared, one of the most disturbing involved the use of a weapon unlike anything he had ever seen before. A force so destructive that he struggled to describe it using the words of his time. He did not call it a bomb or a missile directly, but he spoke of a line of fire that cut through the land, leaving behind nothing but smoke, silence, and
that's got to be lasers, surely, guys. Laser weapons.
Death. Irlmaier claimed that this weapon would be used suddenly and without warning, targeting specific areas with precision.
And also, Russia does have that supersonic missile that goes 18,000 miles an hour. That's how fast it goes. Once you pick it up, it's too late.
He described seeing a yellow dust or a golden flash that spread across the air. Where this dust landed, life would cease. Trees would wither, animals would fall, and people caught in the open would not survive. He warned that those who tried to flee through affected zones would die within minutes. The air itself would be poisoned. Some who study his predictions today believe he may have been describing chemical or even nuclear weapons, though those terms weren't common when he was alive. Others think he saw something even more advanced, a new technology not yet revealed to the public. What's certain is that he emphasized the weapon's ability to kill silently, without bullets or firestorms, and its effects would last long after the fighting had stopped. He described cities where no birds would sing, no footsteps would echo, and no one would return. The silence, he said, would be unbearable. For Irlmaier, this weapon was not just a tool of war. It was a sign of humanity crossing a forbidden line, a point where destruction was no longer about victory, but total erasure. In his eyes, this marked the lowest point of the conflict, and the moment when nature itself would begin to react.
Bobo's probably slept in. That's what he does when he's late.
Alois Irlmaier's vision of the war wasn't limited to soldiers and battlefields. He saw how ordinary people would suffer. One of his most vivid and emotional prophecies involved the mass exodus from the cities. According to him, once the chaos began, cities would quickly become unlivable. Order would collapse, panic would take over, and survival would depend on leaving everything behind. He described how, at first, people would try to continue their daily lives, hoping things would return to normal. But within days, or even hours, the situation would change. Supermarkets would be emptied, banks would shut down, and fuel would run out. People would begin to realize that help was not coming. As fear turned into desperation.
Oh, so you mean that thing I bought off Stan, the one that protects the electricity of the car, that's not going to work. What a shock.
Neighbors would turn against each other. Irlmaier said, It will be worse than hunger. It will be fear that destroys people. He spoke of highways completely blocked by cars that no longer moved, families walking on foot, carrying only what they could hold, elderly people left behind, children crying, not from hunger alone, but from confusion and terror. He saw fires lighting up the night skies, not from bombs, but from people burning whatever they could to stay warm or defend themselves. The police would disappear, and the rule of law would break down entirely.
Our business mobile
I've dreamt
plan
that one about 3 or 4 times. Mass lawlessness.
flexible 5G Australia-wide coverage from $25 a month.
You ready to lose? We can't play along or play, mate.
Industry regulators are banning this $59 ergonomic pillow next month, and this is your last shot to get the original.
One heartbreaking image he shared was of cities turning silent after a few days. Not because peace returned, but because most had fled or perished. The great centers of human progress would become empty shells, and those who waited too long to leave, believing things would improve, would find
Thank
themselves
you.
trapped
Okay.
with no escape. This part of Irlmaier's prophecy is a reminder of how fragile modern life really is. The comforts we take for granted, food, light, safety, can vanish overnight. His words warn us not only about war, but about the deep spiritual weakness of a world built on convenience. Even in the midst of darkness, Alois Irlmaier's visions were not entirely without.
Vast. I don't doubt that device on Stan's selling. I don't doubt it works. But you know what? There's going to be no petrol. So what's the point of paying for one of them, whatever he's talking about? Like, there's no petrol, so when the battery goes flat, that's it, it's over.
Light.
And he also speaks about using one for your house. You put a light on during the tribulation on your house, and you're going to get 10,000 zombies swarm you.
Did not see only destruction and suffering. He also saw places of protection and the seeds of something new beginning to grow. One of the most powerful parts of his prophecy was the
Vast, he's had a big 2 days. He's having a nap on the bed.
image of the mountains as a safe refuge. While cities fell into chaos, the mountains remained silent, strong, and untouched. According to Irlmaier, it would be there that many would survive, and hope would be born again. He described how those who fled early, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, would find safety in the highlands. The Alps, in particular, were mentioned as
Hey,
places
buddy.
where families could shelter
Hello,
and
mate.
wait out the
That's
storm.
me. Yes.
There, far from the centers
me.
of power and violence, people would rediscover what truly matters. Food, faith, and family would become more important than technology or wealth. In the mountains, Irlmaier said, communities would begin to form, simple, humble, and deeply connected to the land.
Happy New
These
Year back,
people would help
Vast.
each other, pray together, and rebuild slowly. He believed that it would not be the strong or the rich who would survive, but the faithful and the prepared.
Yeah, that's
These mountain
true.
dwellers would carry the knowledge and values needed to start again.
Vast, that's true. And the older you get, the more emotional you get over things. It's really weird.
He also warned, however, that the journey to these safe places would not be easy. Those who waited too long would find the roads blocked and the paths dangerous. But for those who acted with calm faith and clear vision, there would be protection. He even said that guardian angels would watch over many of them. In the end, the mountains represented more than just safety. They were a symbol of cleansing, simplicity, and the return to what is sacred. While the old world burned, a new one would begin, high in the quiet places, far from pride and war. For Alois Irlmaier, faith was not just a personal belief. It was the central force that separated those who would endure the dark times from those who would fall into despair. In his visions, he repeatedly emphasized that no amount of wealth, power, or intelligence would save a person if their heart was not rooted in faith.
That's right.
Prayer, according to him, was the greatest weapon of all, not against man, but against fear, chaos, and spiritual collapse. He often said that those who trust in God and live honestly would be protected, even in the worst moments. He didn't promise a life without suffering, but he made it clear that divine protection was real. In his visions, he saw homes where people prayed the rosary being spared, even while destruction surrounded them. He described how light remained in certain places of prayer, while everything else was covered in darkness. This was not just poetic symbolism. For Irlmaier, it was literal. He believed that the spiritual world was closely tied to the physical, and that what a person carried in their soul affected the reality around them. He spoke of guardian angels guiding people to safety, of prayers blocking danger, and of God's mercy extending to anyone who sincerely sought it, regardless of their past. Irlmaier warned that in the final moments before the great events unfold, many would panic. But he also said that those who held on to prayer, even in silence, would find peace when others felt only fear. Faith, in his words, would be the anchor when everything else was falling apart. His message was clear. Faith is not a last resort, it is preparation, and prayer is not weakness, it is strength. For Irlmaier, surviving the future was not just about running from danger, it was about running toward God. While most of Alois Irlmaier's visions focused on Europe, he also spoke briefly, but meaningfully, about regions that would remain untouched by the Great War. One of the countries he mentioned with particular hope was Brazil. According to him, while much of the world would fall into destruction, Brazil would become a place of refuge, peace, and rebuilding, a land that would play a quiet, yet powerful role in the new beginning after the storm. Irlmaier did not describe Brazil as a world power or a military force. Instead, he saw it as a sanctuary, a country that would be spared from the main impact of the war. He described how many people from different parts of the world would begin to look toward South America, especially Brazil, as a place of safety. It would not be easy, and it would not be perfect, but it would remain standing when others fell. What set Brazil apart in his visions was its distance from the political centers of conflict and its natural abundance. He saw it as a land blessed with fertile soil, clean water, and strong families, qualities that would become more valuable than money or technology in the world that would come. While other nations rebuilt from ruins, Brazil would already be alive with activity, growing silently in strength and importance. Irlmaier hinted that Brazil would become a spiritual center as well, not through power, but through faith and community. He believed that the Christian values deeply rooted in the hearts of the Brazilian people would shine in the darkness and attract those seeking peace. In this new era, humility, family, and faith would guide leadership, not greed or ambition. To many who read his words today, this part of the prophecy brings a quiet comfort. In a world filled with warnings, here was a glimpse of calm, a promise that somewhere, far from the fire, a new chapter would begin. Alois Irlmaier described many terrifying and deeply symbolic events, but one of the most mysterious was his vision of a sign in the sky that would appear just before the world enters its final stage of judgment. He didn't call it a star, a comet, or any known celestial body. What he described was something entirely new, an event so powerful and so strange that no one would be able to ignore it. According to Irlmaier, this sign would not be natural. It would not be explained by science or dismissed as illusion. It would...
Oh, could he be talking about IA Atlas?
appear suddenly and shock the entire world. He spoke of a glowing light in the sky, brighter than the sun, yet not burning. It would be visible to everyone, no matter where they were. People would stop what they were doing and stare in silence. A global stillness would fall, as if time itself paused. Some would feel peace when they saw it. Others would feel deep fear. Irlmaier said that the sign would separate the faithful from the fearful, not by force, but by what it stirred in the soul. To those who lived with a clear conscience and strong faith, the sign would be a comfort. But to those who ignored the warnings, it would be unbearable. He described people falling to their knees, weeping, not from pain, but from the sudden awareness of truth. In religious terms, many interpret this event as the moment of illumination, when every person sees their soul as God sees it. A moment of inner judgment. For some, it will be a call to repentance. For others, it will be the final confirmation of what they refuse to believe. For Irlmaier, this sign was not the end, but the final invitation. The last chance to turn back, to surrender pride, and to embrace the truth with humility before the earth is changed forever. In the final chapter of Alois Irlmaier's visions, the world does not end in total destruction, but it does change forever. What remains after the chaos, the war, the darkness, and the judgment is something new, a world purified through suffering. But Irlmaier was clear. The price of this purification would be high. Only a small part of the population would survive, and those who did would never forget what they had witnessed. He described a silence after the storm, a stillness that covered the earth. Cities would lie in ruins, and the old structures of government, economy, and society would no longer exist. Technology would be set aside for a time, and people would return to a simpler way of living, close to the land, close to each other, and above all, close to God. What mattered before, money, titles, power, would no longer hold value. The survivors would be those who had strong hearts, clean consciences, and deep faith. Irlmaier saw the survivors not as victims, but as builders, men, women, and children.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why.
We don't like to show off. We should never be so vulgar as to make a fuss. But BritBox has gotten bigger. What?
Today, my friends, this is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. My researcher came across something rather curious when doing research in some of these pseudepigraphical texts, some of these ancient texts that surround Scripture. He found this one called the Ascension of Isaiah. And what it says is really remarkable. And I'm going to tie that into some of the stuff we're seeing today and also some of the predictions of today. What we're talking about is obviously we've seen a lot of people talking about UFOs of recent. We had an interview over on Redacted. We also had one on Danny Jones about this topic that are very, very interesting. Someone who worked in it. We're talking in the GOV and what he had seen, saying that we actually have even locations, of course, on the moon where people live there. That sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? We'll get into that a little bit. We have also this new documentary came out called Age of Disclosure. And some are wondering if there's a reason why this came out right now. Why was it that we've waited 80 years to learn about what we already knew? Because we've all knew about this. I'm sure a lot of you who follow me, probably avid fans of watching the show X-Files. Some may not know that was actually based on real files. Okay, that's something a lot of people are not aware of. It's not all fake. Some of it's actually real, based on actual legitimate files. But the point is that a lot of us already knew this stuff was real. The question is, what is it? Is it spiritual? Is it actual beings from another planet? is there something coming towards us that we need to know about? Is this something that we saw in the past? That's what we're going to get into in this video, my friends. Let's start with this interview here. This man who said he worked through the Army, he worked apparently on one of these bases, and it's pretty wild what he says here in this video. Check this out.
I'm connected with a couple of soldiers, but as you know, they're scared to come out and talk about this.
Why are they scared?
It goes beyond. It connects to the the spiritual and the interdimensional realm.
So this is what we've been talking about. He's talking about literally let me just show you this, what he's talking about. He's talking about there being actually people living apparently on the moon. This is what he's saying. He's saying how they get there. And he's talking about technology that we have that can traverse to those places already. Now, I'm not sure if this guy's telling the truth or not. I don't know. But it is interesting what he's saying here. We've obviously saw what happened back last year, almost at this exact time in New Jersey. You remember the whole drones and orbs, right? A lot of people are very curious about that whole thing because they were going much faster than our jets. They were behaving very strangely, moving faster than they should. Obviously not moving like normal aircraft move. And some people saw them coming out of the ocean and out of the water. And I showed videos of that as well. Some are wondering if it's actually just technology from China or some other country. We had people discussing this, that this technology was built based on other advanced technology from allegedly aliens. And that we just have procured it ourselves. My background, by the way, is mechanical engineering. I actually studied mechanical engineering design. I had thematic studies in power plant technology, but I wanted to actually be an aerospace engineer originally. I didn't go that direction though. But I find this all very fascinating as well. Let's just hear more what he has to say here.
Of things, Clayton, it goes way beyond. I can't really talk about it because of national security.
Okay.
And because I love this country a lot. And
he ends up talking about a lot of stuff though anyways. We're going to get into, let me play one of these clips over here. This is the wild clip right here. All right, let's check this one out.
But the one thing that I really wanted to talk about was the moon base. And I've heard from whistleblowers, U.S. Air Force whistleblowers who've been transported to the moon base. And I don't know, I know you can tell me, I think there are multiple moon bases from what I understand.
Yeah, there is multiple moon bases. There is a park on the moon as well.
Underground?
Underground. I think it is visible.
It is visible.
Yeah, I think.
Is it on the dark side?
It is in between. I think.
So what he's saying is that there is some sort of arc on the edge of the moon because you only have one face of the moon facing Earth. It does wobble around a little bit, so you get to see a little bit more of the edge, and it moves a little bit, but the dark side never shows towards Earth. And he's saying essentially that it's near the edge. And then he, of course, goes on to ask, where is that at? But it reminded me of this movie that recently came, or not recently, it was like a few years ago. What was it called? What was that called? Moonfall. It was called Moonfall, where they were saying the moon was actually not the moon. It was actually a kind of like the Death Star. It was an actual massive ship or built, or whatever you want to call it, something built, kind of like the Death Star. This is what that movie was about. I remember that movie. Moonfall is pretty interesting. And something had knocked it out of orbit and it started coming towards the Earth. And they had to reset it back to Earth. But let's just hear more of what the guy has to say. Check this out. Explain more.
Do we know where on the moon?
We do know where.
And maybe you could, do you have any ideas specifically? Like, if I'm looking at the moon, because a lot of amateur astronomers are going to want to dial this in.
No, I do not know the exact location. Well, I can't give out the exact location.
Okay.
There's a lot of different countries involved. I know that. I know that there's another, I don't know if this is the first time people hearing this, but there's other people living in the moon that look Indian looking. and they got these egg-shaped crafts, and they're connected to ancient India.
Dude, you know what this sounds like? Oh my
Vimana.
goodness, it reminded me of the TV show Mork and Mindy. Wasn't it Mork and Mindy? Oh no, it was a Superman. Which is the one that had the egg? It was on the back of the
Mork
80s.
and Mindy.
Was it Mork and Mindy?
Yep.
Mork and Mindy spacecraft. Shit. Wasn't it an egg? Yeah,
Yep.
it was. It was an egg.
Yep.
And then you also had on Men in Black, they had those goofy Men in Black chairs look like eggs. Chairs look like eggs. There's also Superman. Wasn't it Superman as well? Did Superman come in an egg in the 80s? Superman.
Yeah, he did.
egg
Yeah.
ship. Wasn't there an egg-shaped ship in the Superman 1980s? Oh, I mean, that's not an egg-shaped. That's a more modern one. I think it was the 80s, but that's a more recent one right there. 80s, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, that's not an egg-shaped, but you get the same sort of idea, though. My goodness, a lot of movies did have that in it. That's crazy, man. Especially Mork and Mindy with Robin Williams. I used to watch that when I was younger. Came to Earth in an egg, right?
Tell you that. And they're living in the moon, and they visit Earth now and then. And I think we have captured probably these egg-shaped crafts before. And I talked about it way before me interacting with a guy. His name is Lovint. And sometimes he picked me up in this egg-shaped craft as well.
Must be bigger because it can hold more than one person.
And you believe he was an ET?
I believe he's MT.
An MT. A moon.
So this is interesting because think about, like, we've heard of these UFO abductions, and there's always some sort of human that looks different in some of these cases, in some of these stories. And I think obviously with them coming in and taking various, genetic, of course, material, perhaps they created them, perhaps they put them on the moon. I mean, this is just me speculating. Maybe the guy's not telling the truth at all. Who knows, right? I've seen some weird videos from the moon before. I've shown them on my channel. There's a guy.
He's putting
His channel was
himself
called
under
Crow, something Crow. Wasn't it 777, something like that? He showed this weird,
Come and say
like-
hello to John.
what do you call it? Like a wave that would go across the moon's surface when you looked at it. And some are like saying it almost like a projector, or perhaps something was over the moon. I don't know what it was. It's really bizarre. Then I've seen other videos as well of things shown where they zoomed in and you could see things flying around the moon, perhaps ships or something like that. I don't know what to make of it. Of course,
So you remember in my soul creation video, I start off with, like the universe, you're created in a bubble. Same thing, egg, bubble.
these days with Solar AI, you can make up anything, right? But this was before then. This was back 10 years ago on YouTube. We were seeing, even 15 years ago, I think, in some cases, videos of this stuff when they didn't even have Solar AI or any of that stuff back then. So that's kind of interesting to think about.
Moon terrestrial.
Yeah.
Right, moon terrestrial. Wow. And he looks Indian.
They look Indian.
Yeah.
They look Indian.
This reminds me also of the people that were seen. What was it? Timothy Alberino talked about it. He went to some South American country. There was some native tribe. I don't remember the entire story. It's on his channel. It's been a couple of years back, where there was some people flying around on hoverboards trying to take people from this village.
Man.
I don't know if you remember hearing about that. That was crazy. He covered that entire story.
So I think that's a legit video, that, because the water was still rippling when it was like 50 feet in the air. It was still rippling like it was right above it.
Remember the name of the place or anything. It's been a while. See, Timothy Alberino. Okay, yeah, here we go. Timothy Alberino, his channel. I'm sure you guys have seen him before. What was that story? Yeah, here it is. It was in Peru. This is the one right here. It was 2 years ago, just like I said. You might want to go check that one out.
I remember
bizarre
that.
story. it was humans, but they were speaking another language. And
I understood they were 9 foot tall and they were peeling faces.
they're flying around on hoverboards, like very advanced technology. And they were in some sort of ship as well. I don't know what to make of that. Very bizarre. They were human, though, or humanoid. So you have that as well. It kind of ties into all of this. You have these weird stories. Obviously, we've seen with movies in the past where things have been said in movies that people wonder if maybe that was there's some truth to it, or an element of something being said about a reality that maybe they don't want us to know about. Actually, you can fit 2 people in this. See that? You can fit 2 people in there. That's interesting. So is there an element of truth to some of this? We have here a lady named Diana Walsh Pasulka, and what does she do? She is a professor of religious studies, chair of the Department of Philosophy and Religion at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Her research centers on the connections between technology and human belief in the context of religious history. So I want to kind of get into how there were these bizarre sightings as well in the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, seen in numerous paintings, even egg-shaped type vehicles as well. She talks a little bit about here on Danny Jones. Check this out.
And so I did a lot of study of old materials in archives, manuscripts, and things like that. And so I also talked about Catholic popular culture and how that shifted this belief. And so
Diane!
I had a long catalog of reports of aerial.
I actually grabbed the heavier pillow because it was coming through the light one.
Phenomena from 1400, 1600, 1700 European Catholicism.
Where's Phil's here?
I didn't quite, in different
G'day,
languages, by the
Phil.
way.
Good to
And
see you,
I
mate.
didn't quite understand what they were about. A lot of times people believe that these were either angels, sometimes flying houses, sometimes souls from purgatory. And so I kept these, and I knew that they were really interesting, but I didn't quite make the connection. I thought.
So I heard about one of these where they actually modified the story later. So she found the original story of what was seen, and it sounded more like something from a UFO sort of phenomenon than it did what they were describing later on. They had actually added Jesus into it. So there's this.
Diane.
I'm trying to remember who it was. It was a saint. I think it was Assisi, the guy that got holes in his hands, and they added Jesus to the story, but in reality, he wasn't in the original story. It was electricity hit his hands and made those marks on his hands. And so it's kind of weird because there's also stories of people being, having electrical burns as well, who have been, abducted and things like that in UFOs.
I wonder what this is about. So I finished my book.
I get the worst thing happen to me because of my back and my dropped left foot. I feel like sometimes there's nails literally getting hammered into my heel, and each strike I yelp. I can actually feel them put nails in my ankle or my heel actually and hammering it in. And it makes me yelp. It's actually agony. It's absolute agony.
My book was in press, and I'm on to the next.
And another factor as well is that people don't realize that angels and fallen angels probably have the same technology. They're the same beings. Kind of like bad humans and good humans are the same beings. They have the same technology. So, I mean, perhaps they purposely separated religion and science so that you would never make this connection that perhaps aliens are actually fallen angels or angels, depending on the situation. And these orbs could be their vehicles, right? Or it could be a representation of them in some cases.
No, they asked I'd need a full intervention to get my leg back. I couldn't do it with potions and all that. Only God can do that.
And that these things are actually spiritual beings.
And when my leg comes back, that's a signal for me to do something. That's between me and God, though.
They're interdimensional, but they pretend like they're just beings from another planet. See what I mean? This is what I'm saying.
Book. But I'm thinking that it's not going to be about that stuff. It's going to be about a Catholic bishop who was one of the first Catholic bishops in the States.
So, of course, oh, well, this is interesting. She says here,
Yeah.
I show a friend of mine this catalog and I say, what do you think of these reports? And he looked through the.
But I couldn't do nothing about it. Some people get these sort of injuries and mope around and feel sorry for themselves. Like, I can't walk to the shops. I got to get one of them mobility scooters. They done my back and they missed the nerve and buggered it up. So that's how I sued them for it.
The reports and he said, oh, these look.
And it is pretty bad. My left leg is probably half the size of my right leg because it's lost a lot of muscle. I still wear shorts though, bugger them.
Like Steven Spielberg films. I mean, it looks like UFOs. I thought he was silly because I was a person who scoffed at this belief. It was a coincidence, but there was a conference in my town for UFOs who were people who had experiences with UFOs. So I went to that and I heard them talk about their experiences, and I saw that these experiences that they were having were like an exact match with the experiences that I cataloged from hundreds of years up to the present. This is what she says here. So there's actually a relation between the two. And if you imagine that these beings are fallen, angels instead of aliens, or if you think of angels differently than what's commonly told to you, that they're just spiritual beings when they.
But in my case, it wasn't a doctor's fault. What happened when I come to Christ, I went a bit loopy and ended up in a psych ward. And I also had sciatica. And they were just treating me like a mug because I was on methadone at the time. So they just, all the agony I was in, they thought I was begging for drugs. And I wasn't. No, I just jumped off methadone, actually. And then they took me for an x-ray. And what they found, it should be operated on within 12 hours or you can cause permanent damage. Well, they sent me home till the Monday. This is on Friday. So they should have operated on me straight away because the longer you leave it, the more permanent the damage. So the doctors done their job. It was the psych wards that didn't do theirs. And I'll tell you what, guys, them psych wards, the nurses are so dishonest.
They are not. They're actually physical, corporeal beings, just like us, and they can go in and outside our dimension. If you look at it that way,
yeah,
and stop trying to turn it into Davy and Goliath, silly Christian.
Diane, when I was in the psych ward, I'd wake up normal, then they'd pump me full of these pills and that, and psych pills aren't the same as Seropac type pills. They're a different class of pills. But anyway, I take all these pills. By 10 o'clock, I was slurring my speech. I couldn't get my thoughts together. So I didn't need all that medication. So to get out of there, I negotiated to get rid of all these, and I just jumped on this one medication. So they done that, and that one actually helps me get to sleep. But that's the only med I ended up on. It's a big experience in the psych wards. I didn't realise I was being attacked, but I was. What happened there?
Spin on it and go towards maybe it's more scientific than we realize, that this is a different dimension. These are actual beings that live in this other dimension, that there's fallen ones, there's good ones, and perhaps that's what we're looking at here. And you make this connection, which of course I think the devil wanted it to.
Diane, when I got out of the psych ward, they were doing home visits every week, once a week, and I'd talk to the nurse, and I told him a bit about some things, I told him some things. When I went for my claim, we had to subpoena all the medical evidence, and he wrote down that I said, "Oh, you can do away with the Bible now. I'm actually God," and I've never said anything like that. He blatantly lied because the more patients they have, the more funding they get. I do not trust the psych system at all.
Where you would make this connection. This is why science and religion has been separated in our modern times. This is why you see the things the way they are, right? This is why you get stuff like millions of years evolution And then, creationism, Davy and Goliath, and whatever you want to call it. I actually believe in creationism, but I'm not going to label the amount of time or amount of years it was on it. I don't believe the same as like the very common beliefs that a lot of Christians have per se on this topic. But I just find it very intriguing because it's almost like intentionally designed to be different than what it is. So when you look at history books, it doesn't jive with evolution. It actually contradicts it in some respects. And then if you look at history, it does not exactly jive with common teaching in the church. Perhaps what's going on here is that both of them, the devil's in both, and twisting both, so that you don't look the right direction and see that they're actually connected. Science and religion are actually connected here. And it's intentionally been set this way so you can't see it.
Diane, it's a huge street selling problem, selling pills and that. More pills get sold than probably heroin. I'd say pills are the first thing to put you in jail. People say it makes you feel invisible, but it's not that. It's just you don't care. It hardens you up.
This is what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying I know how long we've been here on Earth, but I do know.
But people doctor shop, I used to do a bit of that. Go and see 3 doctors a week or whatever and get the strips you need. And then you can sell a bit to get your other stuff. Then you can swap. It's just catch-22 bullshit.
That the time frame that they give us, they claim that it's been only 5,784 years since creation. That is wrong. I've proven it on video. I've straight up proven it on video. If you look at the old timelines that they used to believe in, like Flavius Josephus, the Greek Septuagint, Tacitus, all these ancient historians, they won't agree with that at all, actually. And if you look at creation, how long were they in the garden? That's another question. Were they there for thousands of years? That's another factor. So there's a lot of factors to this. And there's also other things that people don't think about as well with regards to all that. And how long were these days, right? That's another aspect also. But here we got another one here as well. Let's play this clip from Danny Jones on the same exact broadcast. Check this out.
I mean, there's so many blockbuster TV shows that cover this topic. It's almost unfathomable. But that's the thing, that the government isn't necessarily talking about the ancient aspect of it or the religious side of it. They're talking about it as it's just technology. Or
although we've heard some generals of recent, those higher up, that said they do believe it's spiritual. Yeah, some of the guys that are old timers there that have been in it for a while,
like quote unquote aliens, possibly.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting. I think that the one thing that shifts this, makes it different from the Christianity example, I would say that UFOs right now are having a Christianity moment where there's, the institutionalization going on.
This is interesting. So, of course, I remember talking about this with friends back in the year 2000. We were talking about, are these aliens really spiritual beings? Me and my friends were talking about that when I used to work as an engineer back in the old days. So what's interesting is my researcher discovered something rather curious. And I'm going to tie it into some stuff that has to do with bad theology. I think it's in the church.
I never found out UFOs were what they are until I become Christian. And when someone explained their demons and all that, I thought, wow, bingo, that's a nail on the head. That's exactly what they are.
Mention of Isaiah, an ancient text, pseudebiographical text, predicts Nero to be the Antichrist figure. And after his reign ends in 68 AD, Jesus will return with his armies of heaven, which, again, I've covered this before on video. There's actually historical accounts of this occurring in around 66 to 68 AD, depending on who you ask, the date, the year. But if you look at this, I covered this before already numerous times. Multiple historians talk about chariots of fire in the clouds and a giant man leading them, being set, of course, against Jerusalem. You have
We've got our smart locks. The dog walker. The tradie. 4, surprise guest. Unlock freedom with temporary access codes. and you can know who's been, gone, and clearly late home. See it all with Access notifications. Access just got smarter.
You can bring the adventure home like never before. The Red Dome gives you riddles to...
Daughter's wedding is in a month. I don't want us to look like Beauty and the Beef.
Darling, relax. We have plenty of time. Just
You have Flavius
Beauty and the Beef. I should have left that ad on. Beauty and the Beef.
Josephus, first century historian, Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, describes a heavenly army in the clouds, much like the army Jesus leads in Revelation 19:11-14. This event is also recorded by other historians. The first century pagan historian Tacitus also mentions the event. In the sky appeared a vision of armies of conflict of glittering armor. Pseudo-Pegasippus also describes the coming of Christ in the clouds with his mighty angels at one time.
He just said they're shape-shifting. The Transformer movies, they're all based on UFOs morphing. I worked that out myself, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. They even use some of the Bible talk in there, like quotes, I should say.
When he writes, a certain figure appeared of tremendous size, which many saw, just as the books of the Jews have disclosed. And before the setting of the sun, there were suddenly seen in the clouds chariots in the clouds, armed to battle arrays with the cities of Judea and the territories were invaded. The medieval Jewish historian Sefer Yosipian expounds upon the angelic army in the sky of AD 66 by saying, moreover, in those days were seen chariots of fire and horsemen, a great force flying across the sky near the ground, coming, of course, against Jerusalem in the land of Judea, all of them horses of fire, riders of fire. This parallels between the three accounts of Revelation 19 are striking. And you can see here how it relates to 2 Thessalonians 1:7.
Yeah, Diane, margarine's like plastic. You know who invented margarine? One of Napoleon Bonaparte's generals, because the butter kept going off. So he was ordered to find a difference, and he come up with margarine, which I can't eat.
Where it says, "This
I love big chunky butter on your toast."
Will happen when the Lord Jesus revealed from heaven in blazing fire with his powerful angels. He also said to the head of the Sanhedrin that you will see me. No, he said no. Not him. He said it to was it Pilate? I can't remember who he said it to. He said that you'll see me coming on the clouds of heaven, which is exactly what happened in this event that occurred back around 66 AD, which interestingly was predicted by Isaiah in a text that's accepted as inspired by the...
We got Crisco here for us. I've never bought it because there's too many lollies in it. I haven't got that big a sweeter tooth, but it has got some really good stuff in it.
Ethiopian Orthodox Church, but no other. I think it's considered okay or esteemed sort of by the Orthodox Church as well, where he describes a king coming that is evil, like Nero. After it consummated, Beliar, the great ruler, the king of the world, will descend with who has ruled it since it came into being. He will descend from its firmament in the appearance of a man, a lawless king, the murderer of his mother. And of course, Nero murders his mother, who himself as a king will persecute the plant which the 12 apostles of love have planted. So this book was written before Christ. Isaiah, in his death, he was sawed in half. It's mentioned in Scripture. I'm trying to remember what Scripture mentions it. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. I think it's in Hebrews. It's Hebrews something. Hebrews. Yeah, here it is. It talks about they were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. This is referring to Isaiah. They were killed by the sword. This is Hebrews 11, 37-38, talking about Isaiah, the prophet, which, of course, it says in this text, the ascension of Isaiah, he was sawed in half. But why was he sawed in half? Because he said he saw God face to face. Okay? And they said that this is impossible because Moses said you can't do that. Okay? Where is this at? I know it's in here. It's so many things in this thing. I'm trying to get around it. And Isaiah himself said, I see more than Moses the prophet. But Moses said, no man can see God and live. But Isaiah said, I have seen God, and see I live. Therefore know, O king, that he is lying. So they claimed that he was lying. But in reality, what's going on here is there was an ancient doctrine that the ancient Hebrews had that they got rid of. It's called the two powers. Okay? The doctrine's called the two powers, meaning there was a physical power on earth and a power in heaven. The Father in heaven, the Son on earth. So what this means is when you see the burning bush, that was Jesus in the burning bush. When it says angel of the Lord visited Abraham, that was Jesus that visited him. So Christians today believe that only Jesus can only come back one time. But in reality, he literally was in the Old Testament in numerous places. Okay? This is what Dr. Michael Heiser talks about, the forbidden knowledge of the Godhead. And this ties into this whole thing because, again, all the stuff has been separated so you can't see it. If God has already been visiting earth in physical form before he was born on earth, perhaps he also visited multiple times after his resurrection, which he did because he met with 500 people according to Acts. But maybe he's done it other times, like in 66 AD or in 440 AD, when I believe was the beginning of the millennial kingdom. Check this out. This is what Dr. Michael Heiser says about the hidden knowledge of God.
That what we're going to talk about today was sort of looked at as forbidden knowledge. There were certain passages in the Old Testament that you shouldn't be reading and you shouldn't be studying without a rabbi with you, to steer you from one direction to the other, to give you the standard interpretation or denial of what the text was actually saying.
So he shows actually a couple examples here. He shows one here. Let me play this. It's kind of interesting.
It has, let me look at it. The Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. The Lord is raining down fire from the Lord.
So he's saying the Lord is raining down fire from the Lord, meaning it's like the Lord on earth is getting the power from the Lord in heaven to bring something down on earth. Okay? And you remember the disciples asked him, should we call for fire to rain down from heaven? It's ironic that was asked because that's what that's who was there at the time when it occurred, Jesus, back in those ancient times. That's the entire point of this. You have this two powers of heaven concept throughout Scripture. Genesis 19:24, Exodus 15:3, Daniel 7:9-10, where you see Jesus in the burning bush. He's called the angel of the Lord. He's the one who wrestled with Jacob. He is the one who appears to Abraham. He's the one that's always appearing in form, in physical form, is the power on earth, which is Jesus, and the power in heaven is the Father. And then there's the presence of God, which is the Holy Spirit, which is also mentioned in Scripture. And it says that all three of them saved Israel through Egypt, from Egypt, in different passages. I think this is the part here.
Exodus 15:3. This is the song of Moses after they go through the Red Sea. And we have this line in here, the Lord, Yahweh, is a man of war. The Lord is his name. So, even that, the Lord is his name. But the Lord is a man of war. Since other Old Testament passages had Yahweh not as a man.
Phil, you're going to make some butter. Try and get a real moo cow and take a film of it, and I'll put it on YouTube. Oh, wrong way.
Very clearly. And sort of a transcendent being, living in the heavens somewhere. This verse sort of stood out in intertestamental Judaism as significant as portraying the notion that Yahweh would come to earth in human form.
As the Son of Man, which is what the book of Enoch calls him.
And we're going to see how this fit into other passages in a moment. But they looked at this and thought, well, this is explicit. So there's Yahweh on earth as a man, whenever that happens. But that doesn't mean that Yahweh is still not in heaven and everywhere. So apparently, like there's two.
You see that? So the Trinity was actually there in the Old Testament if you look in the ancient languages. And it was already in a doctrine form called the two powers. And no one seems to know that today. Okay, and here's actually another section of it that does this. Who delivered Israel? This is the part I was talking about where it says all three of them. Who delivered Israel from Egypt?
Another way you can see this is to ask the question, who delivered Israel from Egypt and guided her to the promised land? It sounds like a simple question. Well, God did that. I mean, Moses was the human agent, but God did that. Well, if you actually looked it up and you went through the Torah, and Joshua will throw in here at the end here, you'd find out that in some passages in Deuteronomy 4, let's just click out to that one. How does God deliver them? Let's see here. Don't you remember what the Lord your God did for you in Egypt? Because he loved your fathers and chose their offspring after them and brought you out of Egypt with his own presence.
So that's the one where it says presence. So it says, as a man, he brought him out, as his presence. And it says all three, actually. It's kind of interesting.
The word is panim. So here the presence of God was with them. If you go to Judges 2:1.
The angel, which is Jesus.
The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim. I brought you up from Egypt.
See, whenever it says angel of the Lord, it's Jesus. That's when it says it that way. And of course, here we go. This is what I was talking about, Heiser's interpretation of the burning bush. Yes, scholar Michael Heiser taught the angel of the Lord in the burning bush. Exodus 3 was a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus, identifying him as God's divine messenger and presence. So this shows you that Jesus always can appear multiple times throughout history. And Christians have this doctrine that can only appear one time, when he comes back one time. In reality, he can appear multiple times. So this whole idea of there being only one rapture, one time he shows up, is actually not in Scripture, and is actually almost contradicted by the Old Testament and all the other appearances and throughout the New Testament, even in Acts, where he appeared multiple times after he rose from the dead. You see what I'm getting at? So this is doctrine it's stuck in our head that's not actually from Scripture. And so I also believe, like I said before, I think he came back in 66 AD and took some of his immediate people that followed him, because he literally said, behold, I come quickly. And he said, you'll see me in the clouds of heaven. And then he also, I believe, came back in 440 AD and set up his kingdom on earth, which was the medieval times, which is a 1,000-year reign. And now I believe we're in the time of the end, when the devil has been let forth to deceive the nations. And then we have to go.
Actually, Phil, so would I. If I had the grounds to feed cows and I could milk them, I'd do that.
Magog, which is the next thing. Anyway, that's my video. I kind of want to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.
Okay. Where'd it go? There we go. One more, guys, and I'm out.
Okta secures AI, so you'll feel good turning it loose to do its job, knowing the right controls are in place.
A Japanese knife for $20? This deal is insane, but they literally have too many knives that need them gone fast.
Of newly surfaced eyewitness videos from Texas, Virginia, California, Wyoming, everything you're about to see is all moving forward from here.
Transformer blew up just after Black Hawk just blew over. What the fuck? This is where I always do like a lot of like my sky watching. It's in regards to like power lines. Hey guys, look at this crowd. Look. Whoa.
These videos were released by multiple eyewitnesses. No official confirmation has been released yet. To investigate this further, we need to look deeper into these events.
What the hell, y'all? Watch this and listen.
I looked at recent Sky and Official Aviation reports, December 27, 2025, but none of that confirms anything unusual happening across the United States. So now we have to go deeper down the rabbit hole. There have been many reports from cops and sheriffs of unknown objects next to power lines and power plants, but the recent unknown aerial activity next to power lines you're about to see, I have no explanation for. First, it starts with an eyewitness account from Sherman, Texas, who've captured multiple objects moving in close to power lines over the past 3 days.
Hey guys, look at this one. Whoa. Hey guys, look at this crowd, look. Whoa, look at this one here, you guys. Whoa, there's two. Look, there's one right here. Whoa.
What I'm observing here looks like a helicopter and then another craft that I don't know what it is. Fabio watches this for us all the way until nighttime. So let's see what else he saw about the power lines.
Yeah, look at that. I thought I was gonna get caught because like some of the worker people are over here that work in the day, and I'm not supposed to be here. Okay, that one freaked me out because I didn't even see it coming.
I reached out to the eyewitness to find out if there was anything else unusual that occurred during the event, and he claimed this.
There's always so much like UAP, the power lines as like antennas. That's why I've always caught, so many drones, orbs, like huge triangular shaped crafts around this area. Is because we're thinking that they're attracted to the power lines. And if you guys can see, look how many power lines are around me. Look, I'm gonna turn around so you guys can see how many there are. Look, there's like it goes like miles. And if you guys can tell me if you see any crazy activity around there, like more than you usually do, because this is why, like I always see so much activity in here.
While not independently verified, there was something else that was captured by another eyewitness in Virginia when he saw an aircraft go right above the power line. He claims this happened.
Here, Black Hawk, look at this. Look at the camera. What's going on? Goddamn transformer blew up just after Black Hawk just blew over. What the fuck? Oh. Hey, yo, Frank, get inside. Go inside.
I noticed the birds are all just flying up in the atmosphere during the same time.
I noticed that too.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Hey, yo, we need to move these cars.
Oh, yeah, we do need to move these cars. Right now.
Look at him, terrible.
But we can't confirm anything about this clip because we don't see the Black Hawk fly over when we first initially saw it. We see it after the fact that it's already ahead of them. But not saying that this is connected. So an eyewitness in Indiana a few days back before this starts to hear this sound that she claims she hasn't heard before.
I don't know where this sound is coming from. It woke me up this morning.
The people here in the chat claim that they heard buzzing and mechanical sounds in the atmosphere just the other day. But then the eyewitness in Wyoming in the Rocky Mountains noticed this sound in the atmosphere he observed, and he claims something showed up.
Can you hear that?
Wyoming is where these sheriffs claim that these objects are hovering over the power plant. And some reports are claiming that they get energy from the grid, but could there be something much larger going on here? So we go.
You don't get much larger than that.
She pulls out her air filter.
What the hell, y'all? Watch this and listen. Can y'all hear that? Every time we put the flashlight to it, it hums. All right, bring the flashlight over here so that no, it's not just the flashlight. See nothing. Now watch. Look how dirty it is. Well, why is it doing that?
And don't go anywhere because you're gonna want to see she gets another filter to show the difference.
So yes, we know it's dirty. We forgot to change this one. We have several in the house. The other filter doesn't do this when we do it, by the way. Go get the other filter. Okay. And look, the clean filter don't do it. Yo, what the fudge? Y'all hear that? Nothing, right? Now listen.
I mean, I looked around all across social media and I didn't see anything that confirmed buzzing sounds inside of an air filter. So this raises more concerns and questions about what is potentially happening in our atmospheres. Other eyewitnesses are seeing these unidentified objects that are making loud buzzing noises in the atmosphere. And I found unverified footage of what appears to be these unknown lights in the atmosphere with something behind it.
Do business overseas without fees. Tap the banner to find out more.
You ready to lose? We can't play a while, play, mate. Yeah, we can. It's free Wi-Fi there. All right. Wi-Fi seems faster than home. Shame you're not.
My husband has been diagnosed with dementia. There's just constant work looking after my husband.
The question is, whatever was behind that object, could it possibly be touching the soil or the ground in the atmosphere? Right now, we have no evidence to connect it to that. So people claim that they see stuff on their soil and they see stuff on other objects around them.
So we had this giant bush here. It's a rose bush. And I've been kind of examining all the stuff outdoors. And I don't know if you can see this, but if you look on here, you can see like this residue on here. And as I'm looking and examining, you can see the residue.
Okay, I'm going to let you observe that a little closer because, again, this is all for public discussion and for awareness because you couldn't see the plant. Is this usual or unusual? Because he's reported that over the last few weeks, this started to occur with him and his plants. So as with the buzzing noises and everything else, it's something that we're continuously looking into. You want to subscribe to get more on that, but are you hearing or seeing any unusual activity near power lines, power plants? Let us know that because even in Cincinnati, Ohio, we can't confirm what the noise is, but strange sounds. People are awakening from their sleep, apparently. This is what's being reported from them, and they're claiming this, but they don't know what's really going on. They're saying that it's coming in these low frequencies and it's coming in these pressure waves. So this is something that's going to be ongoing for the next weeks that we're going to continuously be watching. And from the people here in the chat, we did get more information because you told us that there was these whining mechanical sounds yesterday, and you
Okay, guys, I'm out after this.
claimed that, but we looked into it and then we got a little bit more. So I need more information from people here in the chat right now as we speak. What is actively happening right now today? Because this active community here, all the new people are really giving us more information just as well as the people that's been here as well. So we're going to have way more eyewitness accounts to bring to you, and this is going to give us more information, and that's why these videos continue because of your information here from the audience. East Palestine, Ohio, y'all are having trouble there, you're saying? Okay, so again, people need to look in the chat again. I'm going to be looking through the comments after this video ends, but don't leave just yet because we're tracking down more information as we speak with people that is on the ground actively watching these events. So we're going to have more people eyewitness accounts coming forward, showing you more video clips. And we're, like we said, if you right now in the chat tell us what's going on, we can start telling people right now. Central Florida, a street light turned green and stayed lit. That's what one person says here in the chat. Outside of that, though, what's the activity like and what's it's been doing over these few recent minutes, up to hours, up to even these next days? Because people are going to be watching this for a while, because we've unraveled some things that have not been confirmed.
Guys, it's Christmas Eve here, New Year's Eve, and Sydney Harbour puts on a good fireworks display. So I'll watch that tomorrow with you guys.
We're going to continue to keep looking into it right now.
Because you're going to head into New Year's tomorrow.
So I'm seeing that people are still gathering more information here in the live chat as we speak. Remember, if you're here new, that your voice does matter. We look at the comments, we make sure everybody has something from each community. We want to get more in from New York. We haven't heard from you much. Want to hear more from people in other sides of the East Coast, so we can get more information to people on the East side. So again, all over in the heartland of Texas, the heartland of America, wherever you're at across the world, to drop your comments. We're looking at everything. Florida's plants seeing drainage, they're not blooming. So you're saying that people are claiming that plants are not blooming like normal. This buzzing thing. So what we have to do here is my next thing that I'm looking into. I want you to know this so you can start to gauge where it's going to go. We're going to have to start asking people, and we're asking you actively right now, that if you get any of this material or you find anything in the soil, maybe we need to start putting something up next to it so we can see if it buzzes. And then we can come out with more eyewitness videos to share with you.
God bless, guys.
Probably have people find out maybe what's going on here, but it's